companies, and the one with the utilities targets high school students. And so that we're really excited about as well. Very quickly, that is what we've done in Michigan. And again, I would just stress that we really started being this, consolidated through this process. I've worked for the state, it seems like forever, but I went back and was cleaning files, throwing out paper from 13 years ago. And I shared last night at dinner, I saw paperwork where we were going to have apprenticeship work groups and task force, and it just comes forward. The process of bringing us together like this really helped us in Michigan. We're thankful for that. Thank you.
Well, I think these stories are really, really phenomenal, and we want to open up to, can you all hear me? Yep, okay. We want to open up to Q&A right now, but before we do that, I just wanted to remind you all that all of these presentations and a lot of the materials that they've supplied are on our community of practice. This is our warehouse of everything apprenticeship, and it's a very lively site. We have blogs, we have videos, we've got lots of different things, so it should be your #1 resource for any sort of information about registered apprenticeship. I also wanted to let you know that our speakers, all of our speakers, are available to your teams as a resource. So if you would like Peggy or Janet or Wes to come and talk to your team individually, please tell your facilitator. They will let me know, and we will arrange for them to come and talk with you sometime today. So let me open it up for questions.
Thank you. My question has to do with mentoring, and Janet, you had talked about that quickly. Obviously, retention is a big issue for us in the building trades. With apprentices, we've dabbled and talked about mentoring, but a lot of times our members really aren't trained to mentor. And so I was wondering if you can touch a little bit about that and who does the mentoring in your state.
We actually have a mentoring curriculum, and so we train mentors. Some of them are journeyman apprentice who take on that additional responsibility beyond what they might do on the work site. Some of them are just volunteers coming out of a variety of different agencies. But what we really do is talk about, #1, we provide them with a resource list. So if an individual has needs and there are resources available in the community, they know where they may be able to direct them to. We also have sessions where they meet in groups just to talk about overcoming what they are, encountering. Part of the curriculum involves some training in helping to give some basic, I do mean very basic, financial guidance. I mean, for many of these individuals, particularly just starting, it's a money management issue. If they are in an occupational that is seasonal, it is talking about what to do during the off season. But more than anything, it's somebody there that they can sort of bounce concerns off of. It may be an issue on the work site. And so part of the training that our mentors go through is also conflict resolution so that they have that as another, tool to work with. So it varies, but they are structured.
Okay, other questions?
Hi, yes, I was really intrigued with the concept of having every high school student go to work or have some exploration in the field of work. And I just wondered, are you following that? Are you doing any kind of analysis of that as you go forward?
We are. In fact, we have a computer-based program called Connect to Business, and businesses are able to post their opportunities. We call them extended learning opportunities on that site. All of the guidance counselors have access to that site, so they can go on, but actually the students have access as well. So they can go on and say, employer A has a internship, I would really be interested in that. The guidance counselor actually has to make that match, because obviously you don't want 10 kids showing up for the same opportunity. But once the match is made, you enter that on the computer-based system, and it shows that it's been made. I'll make a shameless plug for commercialism here. We've offered the businesses in order to get them to step up, because in the past they had school to work and the co-op kids, but they didn't have everybody. and this is everybody. So they have really had to step up. And we actually offer them the opportunity to advertise just their logo. We don't let them, solicit products or anything like that, but to put their logo up with their opportunities. So it's actually working well. We do have areas, as you can well imagine, in South Carolina that are very rural, don't have a lot of opportunity. We've actually contracted with a firm that has developed virtual job shadowing. They're 3-hour interactive videos. They're certainly not as good as being there, but they were produced by our companies, and they actually allow the student to, for example, build a product, using robotics and that sort of thing interactively. They're very, very interesting. So are we there yet? No. Are we getting there? Yeah, we've made a lot of progress.
Good morning. I'm Diane Tucker from the Urban League, and this question is for Janet. Regarding your educational system, and you spoke about engaging the students from K to 12 with career opportunities or exploration. I understand the older children, but how do you do that with the younger children?
Part of that's done through the after-school partnership organizations, Michigan After School Partnership, and it's really just talking about what you want to be when you're really young. For the youngest of children in many of those programs, they have individuals come in from different industries, different careers, just to talk to them about what they do. As they get a little bit older, there are a variety of field trips and progressively more involved with older children. And then we get into internships working with them. The Workforce Investment Act, WIA, starts serving the younger youth at age 14. And so for those that have really been in our programs, it's like a continuum. We believe that there really shouldn't be starts and stops, that it should be something that is ongoing. And so everything is really designed to be age appropriate, but it is to talk about the world of work and what that means.
May I address that as well? Just very quickly, we also have an elementary component in our Education and Economic Development Act. We ask now that when folks come in to talk about their careers, which, you have a fireman, you've done that, fire person, you've done that forever. Now we ask that person to also talk about their educational preparation. And one of the things that's been very interesting is, we have a lot of emergency personnel that talk about the physics behind a burning building. They talk about, all of the really interesting pieces, and they explain what coursework they took to be able to understand that and do their job. So we just sort of added the education component to those career opportunities.
Hi, excuse me, this is Dave Francis from Rhode Island. How are you guys measuring performance, and have you used those outcomes in any marketing plans?
Well, I'll start with Michigan with our MRAP programs. Because we're still in year 1, we know how many apprentices have gone into the program. 100% of them are still there. Some of them have been there as short a time as a month. Some have already been there almost a year now. So we're looking at that. Some of the apprenticeships that are starting are not coming through the MRAP program, but if they're in our WIA programs, we're certainly monitoring them as we do WIA reporting and WIA tracking. So we don't have anything that's really longitudinal of any length since this initiative has started, but we are collecting data.
You want me to respond to that as well? I mean, we have a lot of performance measures. Well, because we've been at it a little bit longer, we have a little bit more. We have looked at the number of registered apprenticeships we had. As I said, we didn't have many to begin with. We have increased that over threefold. We had 90 different registrations. We now have over 270. We've also looked at the number, but in order to look at our WIA measures, we're putting in a lot of WIA money here. We're also looking at, and as I think, Bernie, I think you were talking about, once you start the apprenticeship, you're actually employed. But we've looked at retention, and we've also looked at wage, and as you well know, an apprenticeship, you move up. So it's a win-win for WIA. Our measures have gone up with apprenticeships, so it's a great sell for our folks.
This is a question for Wes. Dan Porter from New York. You had mentioned that in the Texas model, you don't write checks, I think was your exact phrase. But you do provide a lot of other support, and that kind of intrigues me. What other support are you bringing? What is the value proposition to the other stakeholders, and particularly the private sector in this?
Well, let's start with what you have to do to get a program. An employer has to sign off on it. A part of our approach going to employers has been, although we're not going to give you money, we'll give you every bit of technical and staff assistance we can provide. We'll open the door for agencies. We'll open the door with our staff. We'll help you take one of your needs, and we'll take you all the way through the steps required to get your new occupation approved by the Department of Labor as an apprenticeable occupation. We have one statewide health care provider trying to serve those rural areas who came up with that health position, and we may end up seeing about 200 people in that alone. Now, we didn't write a check. We didn't use WIA funds, so we aren't subject to all of those guidelines. This is simply an employer meeting a need. Let me go back to my preposition that when you give people grants, the program lasts about as long as the duration of the grant. And when you use all of these federal funds, then you've got all of those reporting requirements that you've got to jump through. We have none of that. We simply said the Workforce Council itself is putting out a call among the state for applicants who either want to create a new apprenticeable occupation or who want to take an existing program and demonstrate how it can work outside the old boundaries but within the new boundaries. We've had one applicant there, but we've got something like 30 applicants for these new apprenticeable occupations who simply want the help and assistance. They don't know how to even begin to approach the Department of Labor. They don't know how to go through the processes of getting something apprenticeshiped, and they're not entirely sure they understand the program. So to them, meeting the workforce need is more important than getting a short-term grant. And from our perspective, getting that perception changed and getting employers wanting to use the model is far more critical to us than a number of metrics we might have set up. So over the life of this program, we think we're going to create multiple new apprenticeable occupations, and we're probably going to create several thousand new apprenticeship positions. But it will be more employer-driven than before, and that's going to lay the groundwork for the work we will then do in going back and talking about career and technical education more broadly. Lockheed Martin, again, to give you an indication, if we're going to lose them as a manufacturer, it will be because they can't find enough machinists and welders. It won't be because they didn't get the government contract renewed by the Department of Defense. It will be for something that basic. So that's why we're approaching it in this way. We just don't believe with the scarcity of funds that funding these programs is the way to go. We believe creating all of the other support employers want and need is more critical to them, and to date, our experience seems to be proving that theory.
Hello, Laura Chenvin from New York. In the healthcare field, there's a lot of training that's out there that's not an apprenticeship. You can go to colleges, there are a lot of providers. But there are some real advantages, as you all know, to making them apprenticeship jobs. One of the questions that I have, particularly, let's say you talked about some of these enhanced nursing assistant positions or community health worker. If a worker is looking at this as a start to a long-term career in healthcare, those jobs eventually need to go into the community college and then the four-year college system to advance that career ladder. I'm very interested in how you've been able to work with the colleges so that those apprenticeship programs, which may exist outside of the college, actually articulate to the next step for that worker.
I'm really glad you asked that, because one of the things I forgot to say is that because our apprenticeship program is actually, the infrastructure for that program is actually in the technical college system, they're the ones that go out and do what Wes is talking about. You know, they actually help businesses understand how to do the paperwork, interface with Ron Johnson, who is absolutely fabulous, our apprenticeship coordinator from USDOL. But every single one of our apprenticeships actually results in 4 credit at all of our technical colleges. And that has been an interesting hurdle, okay? That was something that was something we put on the front end. Because as I said, you know, our consultant had told us unless we tied it to higher ed, people still weren't gonna buy. So we did that. Now, you know, the first thing the colleges wanted to do was put it all in continuing ed.